back to Lolly's Kitchen. So it's about 3 weeks into 2021, and I'm not seeing a huge difference from 2020. I don't know about you. My attitude might be a little bit better because it seems like this is going to be the new norm. So I started thinking back to like when things changed. I mean, did we really think that there was going to be like this cosmic light switch where we were just going to flip it and then everything was going to go back to normal, or the normal that we knew? Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think we're going to have to learn to move and adapt and just come up with a new sense of normal. So that can be bad or it can be good. I think it's what we make of it. So, I mean, think about it, right? So when the 70s were here, and the clothing was kind of questionable, that could be bad or that could be good, because I remember I was sporting bell bottoms a good 3 years into the 1980s. So and now bell bottoms are back in. Well, they might not be, but they were just like a year ago. So anyway, anything that's old comes back, everything becomes a new sense of normal. So the big thing is find that normal in you and be that stabilizing force within everything. So make it your rock should be your faith, and that should be your foundation. And then you have your friends and your family, and hopefully me coming in. So grab your something to drink, cup of tea, a soda, whatever. Get your notebook out. We're gonna make something that's good and old-fashioned. We're bringing something back retro, and we're gonna make meatloaf today. So here we go. Buckle up. I don't know why I feel like I have to say that, but let's get going. Okay, so I need to pull my sleeves up for this because meatloaf can get messy. All right, here we go. So I was looking up the history of meatloaf because I wanted to know, where did it come from? So meatloaf actually dates back, the earliest recipe, to the late 1800s. And I don't know, the lord of the manor, the guy who bought the meat, you know, he was tired of wasting food and stuff and probably wanted to feed his servants cheaply. So he said, we're gonna take all the meat scraps that we have, we're gonna grind them up, and we're gonna add all the scraps of anything else we have. So fruits, nuts, vegetables, anything else. We're gonna mix it all together, bake it, and you're gonna eat it. So I don't know that the upstairs people ate it, but probably the kitchen folks ate it. So we're gonna do a better version of that. That kind of sounds like the hot dogs of its time. It's a whole bunch of scraps mixed together and it's kind of questionable, but we're gonna do something better today. So I've got my ingredients in the bowl, and I actually started mixing it because we started filming and realized we didn't have something turned on, the audio. So we had to go back and redo this, and I can re-say what I need to say, but I can't undo the meat once it's been done. So in my bowl, you'll see I already have 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of buffalo, so I'm choosing to use buffalo just because it's a lot leaner. You can choose, if you're using ground beef, you can choose the ratio of fat to leanness at the grocery store, whatever you want to get. The buffalo by nature is already lean unless when you get it, it's got fat added to it. So I have that all mixed together in the bowl. I'm gonna add 1 egg. Funny thing is, when I was looking up the recipe for this, when I was looking up the history, they actually used eggs and breadcrumbs in the old days. So how about that? So this is truly how it began. All right, so I'm gonna mix all that in. The egg is the binding of this. Keeps it all together, changes it from a hamburger to a meatloaf. And then the next thing I'm gonna add is 1 cup of buttermilk. So the biggest complaint about meatloaf is how dry it is. That's typically, that was one of the things that I had when I was a kid. So we're gonna mix 1 cup of buttermilk in here. You can use regular milk if you want, or you probably don't have to use milk. We're just gonna try this out. I've actually never put milk in my recipes, so I love to try new things with you guys and see how it tastes. And you know, at the end, I'm gonna taste it and tell you. If I make the good face, it's good. If it's the bad face, you'll see it. All right, so we're gonna add 1 cup of breadcrumbs to this. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm gonna add my seasoning. So the recipe that I found, the seasoning had onions and all sorts of different stuff in it, garlic and salt and pepper and stuff. So I added some pepper to this, but I'm actually going to put French onion soup mix because it's got everything in it and all the salt and everything and all the onion. And I added a little bit of extra garlic powder, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there and mix that in. These things don't sound good when I'm mixing them. All right, and then we're gonna add breadcrumbs, okay? So we are gonna use Panko breadcrumbs. You could use whatever you want. Okay, so now we're gonna add the breadcrumbs. So I'm using Panko, but you can go ahead, because that's what I had, you can go ahead and add any breadcrumbs you want. You could actually crunch up bread. You know what else would be really good in here? Croutons, crunched up croutons, because they have a bunch of seasoning in them, so that'd be really good. I actually did an unseasoned breadcrumb. So we're gonna mix all this in here, and so that kind of gives it that loafy, I guess the loafiness, that's a new word, I just made it up. So that's gonna help it stay together, and that is what is gonna make it taste like meatloaf. And then I thought we would add a little bit of green chili, because it's what we do here. And so I'm actually gonna add about 1/4 of a cup of dynamite chilies. So those are hot. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm gonna mix those in there. So the funny thing about the history of this, they said that when they made this meatloaf, they actually made it, prepared it the night before and made it for breakfast the next day, which I couldn't imagine eating meatloaf for breakfast. In fact, the only time I would eat meatloaf for breakfast is if I didn't like my mom's from the night before and I was still sitting at the kitchen table not eating it at breakfast. So that would be the only time I would eat meatloaf for breakfast. All right, so now we have it all mixed up here in the bowl. And we are gonna put it in loaf pans. So you can do a one big loaf pan. I'm gonna actually do mini meatloaves because we're starting to do some meal preps for the week so that we can have things on hand, already prepared, ready to go, and makes it a little bit easier to eat healthy this year. So meatloaf is on our list. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take out a piece here, and I'm gonna stick it in this pan. And what I do have here is a mini meatloaf pan. And I have it lined with parchment paper. That way I don't have to add to Pam or anything to the pan. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this down in there. I'll move it over here so you can see it. All right, so I'm gonna add it to the pan here. And it can be so meatloaf doesn't rise, so you can add it all the way to the top, however much you want. We're gonna go ahead and fill this up. And then what I'm gonna do is to add a little bit of something is I'm gonna put a piece of bacon on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tuck that bacon down in there. So the bacon is also adding a little bit of grease or fat to the meatloaf. So one of the things I don't like is a dry meatloaf. In fact, that's why you always see these meatloaf recipes with ketchup and stuff on it, is because they're so dry that they have to add something else to it. So we're gonna try to make this where we don't have to add anything to it. But if you are gonna add something, typically what I like to add is barbecue sauce. That tastes so much better. All right, so now we're gonna do this. I actually have more meatloaf than pans. I have a couple more pans. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those prepared. Oh, and if you're wondering, why do I put my parchment paper in a crisscross in the pan? And the reason why is because when I'm taking it out, it's easier just to pick it up and take it out. And so that way you don't have to worry about it sticking on both sides. So isn't that clever? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put these in the oven and I'm going to bake them at 350 degrees for, it says in the recipe for a full loaf pan about an hour. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bake it for about 45 minutes because it's a smaller pan. I might check it in 30 and see what it is. You don't want raw meatloaf, that's the whole bottom line. You don't want raw meatloaf. And depending on the meat that you're using, it might take different times to cook. So if you're using a turkey or a ground chicken or something like that, it might not take as long because there's not as much fat and things in that meat. So you just want to be mindful of that. So I'm going to put these in the oven and I will see you when they are done. Oh, and one thing we're doing is we're trying to crisp up the bacon. So when you're done baking, if it's not completely crispy on top, you might want to put the broiler on just to crisp up the top if you're going to eat it that day. Okay? All right, here we go. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So the proper temperature to cook your meatloaf to is 160 degrees. So we have a ready temp thermometer here with the digital readout, which makes it the easiest to see what temperature it is. So this ended up cooking to full temperature about 45 minutes on the smaller loaves that I did. The last one I did, you can see here it's really well stuffed. So that one took a little bit, like at 45 minutes, it was at about 155 degrees, which was perfect because 155, you turn your broiler on now, and then you get your bacon nice and crispy on top. So what I would recommend is when you're cooking this, cook it for probably in the smaller tins to about 35 minutes or so, and then check your temperature. When your temperature is about 155, then go ahead and put your broil on, and then we did end up broiling it for about 5 minutes with the bacon, get nice and crispy. So excited. It came out of the pan really easy with the 2 parchment papers. I pulled it right out. So now we're gonna try it. So one other thing I have to complement this that I had cooked earlier, and I will go ahead and add the recipe to the end, so stay to the end. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you guys to subscribe. Do you wanna see more of this? Well, you need to subscribe and click the bell and like it on Facebook, and then you'll be notified of all the new things coming up. We're starting to do some smaller bites, which are shorter videos just for smaller segments, but then we have our full meals like we do today. So anyway, back from the commercial to this. All right, so I made some roasted vegetables earlier. So I have some cut up sweet potato here in my cast iron pan, and then I have cauliflower that I broke apart and just lined the pan in that, and then put the cauliflower, or I mean the sweet potato in the middle. I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so then I coated all of them with olive oil, and then on the sweet potatoes I put a savory spice from the Savory Spice Shop, and it's the ghost pepper curry powder, and I mixed that all in. I added a little garlic and onion to it, and then put a little salt on it. On my cauliflower, I topped it with olive oil, and then I put some bruschetta seasoning that I just had gotten at the store. So basically Italian seasonings and some other herbs in there. Put that on top. I baked it covered for an hour. No, 45 minutes, I lied. Baked it covered for 45 minutes on 450 degree temperature, my nose is running, 450 degree temperature oven. Then the last 15 minutes, you take the foil off, put it in the under broil, and that's what gets it the blackened top to it, which is really yummy. So anyway, we have that as a garnish here. Well, it's our side dishes today, if you were my husband saying it. Of course, he would say it faster. Anyway, so let's go ahead and try this meatloaf. Okay, now remember, we added those hot peppers, and I'm gonna tell you, I think it's gonna be spicy. All right, here we go. It's really good, but it's really spicy. So, 1/4 of a cup of dynamite peppers is a bit too much for this little guy. Unless you like spice, I'm kind of a wimp on the scale, wimpy. So it's a little spicy for me. I might add a little bit of a barbecue sauce on it just to help cut the spice for myself. The meatloaf though is super moist. Oh my gosh, this is the moistest meatloaf I've ever had. So I think adding that buttermilk was a great idea. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try to get my taste buds under control by having a piece of my sweet potato. So I'm gonna finish dinner. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you were cooking right along, and when you make your own, put a comment down. Let me know how you liked it. If you're ever at the kitchen and you get to taste my meals, you're one of my local friends, please comment if you like it. And also, if there's something that you've been dying to try but you don't want to try it, let me know. I'll buy the ingredients, I'll do it, I'll work out all the kinks and tell you how easy it can be. All right, friends, be the change you want to be in the world, or the change that you want to see in the world. And I love you guys, and God bless.